The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "This is my commandment. Love one another as I love you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. I have called you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you, and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise be to the Lord Jesus Christ.
I always marvel at the saints, especially those who have been martyred, and like St. Maximilian Kolbe today, whose feast day we celebrate. I don't know if I heard this from him, but often you hear from the saints and their life, this like desire to die. This is like desire to be a martyr. And I find that just kind of striking, like humanly striking, that someone would have such an ardent desire to suffer for Christ, to like give themselves completely, even over to death, out of love for our Lord and others. So it's just a really high degree of charity that doesn't quite compute on the natural level. On the supernatural level, it does. So think of our Lord in our gospel today. He says, "No one has greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends." Right? So he teaches that verbally. He shows it, physically on the cross. That he laid down his life out of love for us. And that's what I think that's exactly what our Lord is showing us, but also what the desire is of the saints that want to give themselves out of martyrdom. I don't know if Maximilian Kolbe verbalized it to that degree. If you know a little bit about his life, he would, at an early age, there was a desire to serve God alone, and our Blessed Mother appeared to him kind of holding out these two crowns, a white one and a red one. A white one, symbolizing like a life of purity, of chastity, and the red one being a sign of martyrdom. And she was kind of like, "Which one do you want?" He's like, "I want them both," So he lived a life professed of chastity, of celibacy as a religious and as a priest. And then he was also martyred later in life. So anyway, that was his call. And then later in life, he did find himself in Auschwitz in 1941. And there was a prisoner who escaped. And so back then they would line him up and say, "Okay, if he doesn't return, they would execute a few men," however that worked. Anyway, there was a married man who said, "Come forward, you're going to be executed." And Kolbe stood in his place. He says, "Hey, how about we change? I'm just a poor parish priest. Put me in, And so he gave him, he died. He died a long, arduous death of being starved, and then eventually by lethal injection. So he gave his life out of love for this other man. And I think, I still don't quite understand it on the natural level, that desire, but I do get it in a spiritual way, that love is a total gift of self. And that when one wants to emulate Christ so much, or love Christ so much and others so much, there is a desire to die for them. But it doesn't end there. And I think that's what our Lord shows us. I mean, it's super important that death leads to life. The crucifixion leads to the resurrection. The Maximilian Kolbe being martyred in Auschwitz led to his eternal reward in heaven. And that's the other kicker, that it's not just death and it's over. It's death and it leads to life. And that's the exchange of love that our Lord shows us and that offers to all of us, whether it's martyrdom or not. That when we give of ourselves completely out of love, in service to others, or love of brethren, spouses, things like that. There's an opening, an emptying that allows our hearts to be filled then with the presence of Christ. So there's a dying and a rising. That's the exchange that our Lord shows us, teaches us, and invites us to. So the saints like Maximilian Kolbe give us an example of how that's done as well. So we just thank God for Maximilian Kolbe's witness today of not only martyrdom, but his witness of love that shows us that complete gift of self leads to a filling of love that comes from our Lord. It's a mystery for sure, but we taste it, we experience it first from receiving our Lord's love and then giving of ourselves out of love as well.